Welcome to Lecture 5 on Memory. So now we're going to talk about the forgotten memory, recovered memory debate. And I wish I had time to go into this in detail, but unfortunately I do not. So there's something called childhood amnesia. It's also called infantile amnesia, which is the inability to remember personal experiences from the first few years of life. We don't remember things that happened to us before the age of 2.5 to 3, usually 3 to 4. And there's a couple reasons for that, two of which are, well, the first is neurological immaturity. The frontal lobe is underdeveloped, and the hippocampus. As you know, the hippocampus is critical for encoding and storing memory. Both of these structures of the brain simply aren't developed enough to create autobiographical memories, memories of things that have happened to you. So many of the events that we feel like we remember from early childhood are constructed from information learned later in life. They're based on stories we hear from family members or pictures that we've taken or that, family has shown us. And with that, we create false memories of things that didn't happen. But we feel very strongly that they did. Let me check something. So often people will think that, well, if I can't remember very much before the age of 4 or 6 or 8, so most of us don't remember very much from our earlier childhood, which is normal. There are some less reliable mental health experts that will say, well, you might be repressing traumatic memories. No, you're not. The hippocampus develops very slowly. Our ability to use language develops slowly. We're not fluent until the age of 3. One of our primary types of retrieval cues is language. So, even if the hippocampus was able to process that memory, we lost the retrieval cues. We lost the keys to that memory. Another thing, let me check my next slide before okay, yeah. So many forms of memory become language dependent as we develop. And thus, memories that were not linguistically encoded, that we didn't form language-based retrieval cues with or for, are very difficult to recall due to this loss of our non-linguistic memory cues. We just don't have the keys to those memories. Now, there's another issue with all of this. So, my expertise background is in personality and development. Personality and temperament and the development of self. Research has shown for decades that infants don't know that they are separate beings until 18 to 24 months. There's no concept of I or me. We just don't have a self to tack our memories onto. So, let's say you get a puppy for your 2nd birthday. That's really exciting. That would be a flashbulb memory. If your hippocampus was developed enough, if you weren't, you were using more language-based codes, and if you had a self to even tack that memory to. You don't. We don't develop a sense of self, the concept that we are individuals, until we're 18 to 24 months old. So no, childhood amnesia and infantile amnesia are not evidence of trauma. You're not repressing anything. We're just not made to remember things that really happened before the ages of 3 or 4. And we're not made to remember very much of what happened to us those, first 7 years. Now, the older we got, the better we became at encoding memory, and we can access those memories more and more. But we just couldn't encode. We couldn't form the right retrieval cues. We didn't have a self to tack memories onto. Now, false memories can be implanted. Generally, we can easily implant minor false memories. So let me go to my next slide. Right there, I want you to stop, go to Moodle, the folder titled Chapter 7 Memory Lecture Videos, and watch the video Implanting False Memories. Welcome back. I find that fascinating. I'm both amazed and a little disturbed by how easily false memories can be created. I'm both fascinated and horrified that our memory system is so intricate and so fragile. So, we can easily implant minor false memories. We can't implant false memories of big life events. We can create false memories that such events happened. Now, one of the things that happens with memory is called confabulation. And that's where we remember part of an event, where we have part of a memory, but we realize we're missing some of the information and our mind just fills in the blanks for us. We don't even know that we don't have the complete memory because our brain is just saying, here's your memory. So that becomes our memory. We're not even aware that we had to confabulate some of that information. And children do confabulation a lot, because their memory system is developing. And, so if you ask, 5-year-old Olivia, what did you have for lunch today at school? I had hot lunch. What kind of hot lunch? Spaghetti. When actually you sent your little girl with peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, is she lying? Probably not. She just doesn't remember. But she knows that she needs to have an answer. It's embarrassing to not have an answer to a question that you think you should know the answer to, especially such a mundane issue such as what you had for lunch. By using suggestibility and source confusion, memories can be altered. So, false memories can be implanted, and through suggestibility and source confusion, memories can be altered. This brings us to the issue of recovered memories. Due to intense trauma, we repress painful memories to separate ourselves from the pain of the event. Now, this idea is very controversial. So I'm going to read the rest of the slide and then expand. Some psychotherapists claim that long repressed memories of traumatic events can resurface, but there's evidence that suggests that some therapeutic techniques can result in false repressed memories. This is a sticky issue. We do know that the mind is capable of repressing information. It can repress memories. It doesn't do it. It's not a typical event, thing to happen, but our mind can do very interesting things when it comes to trauma. One of the ways that people survive trauma sometimes is just not encoding the memory at all. It's a complicated issue. textbook talks about this briefly, but, a case where a young woman reported having been involved in a satanic cult as a child and made to murder an infant. And she now knows that that never happened. But there was this, what's called the satanic panic of the 90s, 80s and 90s. And I was kind of within that. My parents were very, I couldn't play role-playing games. There was music I wasn't allowed to listen to. We weren't especially religious, but it was there was just this underculture of this myth that there existed groups of Satanists targeting your children to bring them to Satanism and make them do things ritually involving sex and blood. For some reason, that parents became very, very focused on the idea that it existed. There's no evidence that any of it did. There's no incident that has been proven to have actually happened. I think it would be hard to erase all remnants of satanic child abuse causing children to murder other babies. I don't think you can really cover that up as well as I guess we did. People do repress memories and they can come back. But it is a sticky issue. And let me check my next slide. There are some significant legal consequences as well. Because, recovered memories are often memories of trauma. And unfortunately, a lot of trauma happens because of criminal acts against us. So, what do we do with this info? We know that repression is generally limited. You might repress part of a memory, but it's really, really, really rare to repress an entire memory. Especially emotionally intense memories. The memory of being 8 years old and killing an infant, that's a pretty intense emotion. The likelihood that anyone would repress that entire memory is so tiny. We've got to be critical thinkers about this stuff. Studies do show that generally, suggestion can only implant minor memories, but not memories of massive satanic ritual child abuse episodes, but also other traumas. People will say they feel like they've recovered a memory of being sexually abused by so-and-so at such and such an age. What do we do with that? It could be true. It might be true. How do we know? What do we do with that? I really don't have an answer for that. Every once in a while I just think through that. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with the idea that memory is so fragile. It's like, what is my truth? How accurate is my truth, but does it need to be accurate? It just leads me onto all kinds of tangents, as you're witnessing right now. So therapists have to be cautious. We have to be really careful in how we ask questions. We need to make sure we're not asking leading questions. And both sides of this debate, repressed memory, false memory debate, have some good points. Memory is both fragile and dynamic. The research points to false memories are easy to create, but not about big life-altering traumas. And that a repressed memory, we almost never repress an entire memory. We might repress part of that memory. And infant memories are not recoverable. They're just not, because they're not even there. So many things affect memory. Neurological development, your life experiences, brain trauma, brain damage, your ability to form retrieval cues, your ability to attend to information, suggestibility, and your emotional and physiological states at the time of the event. So I challenge you to just think through what is this information about memory and accuracy mean to you? What do you feel is important about that, and how do you sort that for your own life? Does it matter to you? I've kind of developed the approach of I just kind of roll with it. What I remember is what I remember, and that's really all I can work with. Okay, thank you. And this is the end of our lectures on memory.